Okay, hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining our session today. We'll go ahead and dive in since we're at our start time. Our presentation today, we're going to be covering what we're calling next generation automated testing, which includes PTF and open source tools and applications. So we're going to be covering how can you integrate testing both within PeopleSoft and your external applications. So using PTF and open source tools. I'll be presenting with Tarun Amathan from SpearMC as well. Okay, and I'm live, but yeah, there's a photo of myself. Again, I'm a managing director with SpearMC Consulting, 20 years consulting experience. Tarun is a senior test automation consultant, and he has over 4 years of consulting experience. This next slide, wanted to at least share some of the other presentations that SpearMC will be doing with the Quest and Vision conference. We have about 13 sessions, so everyone is more than welcome to join those other sessions. Lots of great content to share. This slide just does a quick overview on SpearMC. SpearMC, we do all things PeopleSoft, all applications, financials, HCM, supply chain. We do managed services, support. We're starting to do a lot with OCI. I'll talk about that a little bit in the next slide. In this presentation about PeopleSoft Test Framework and test automation, we deliver that as a one-time service and ongoing through as a managed service. And then we also work with EPM Cloud and Hyperion on-prem EPM applications and Oracle Business Intelligence. This slide just shows the offices and our coverage across the U.S. Started in San Francisco in 2004 and just recently opened up an office in Pittsburgh. So we've got all regions covered at this point. This next slide just kind of talks to a recent recognition that we received from the Gartner Group. We're extremely proud of it based on some of the Oracle Cloud infrastructure work that we've done with clients. We've actually been recognized by Gartner. Okay, now I'm going to dive into some of the session content. In terms of the agenda today, we're going to do an overview of test automation tools. For those of you that are new to PTF or PeopleSoft Test Framework, we are going to cover that tool and our approach for implementing PTF and supporting it. Then we're also going to cover some of the open source tools that will allow you to extend test automation to other applications. We're going to go through kind of the life cycle of SpearMC's projects and managed services, kind of how we approach the full test automation life cycle. Then we're going to do some demonstrations for you, both delivered PTF testing, how you execute and run scripts. Then we're also going to cover some of the bolt-on solutions that SpearMC has built to extend and enhance some of the functionality in PTF. So as delivered, it is a great tool that allows you to automate testing. There are some gaps in terms of how you do reporting and how you validate the success or failure of tests. So we're going to go through those test reports that we've built. And then also some really neat tools around how to update and maintain scripts, and then executing scripts from the PeopleSoft Internet architecture, so from a web browser. And then we're going to do a couple demonstrations. They're actually recordings of the Selenium and Appium testing tools. Okay, in terms of PeopleSoft Test Framework, so real high-level overview. It's delivered with PeopleSoft. If you have a license to run PeopleSoft applications and PeopleTools, it's free to use. It does require a client installation, just like Application Designer, in order to create, edit, and run test scripts. So you do have to have either a virtual desktop or machines set up with PTF installed. PTF understands the PeopleSoft metadata, so the individual fields, the buttons, the URLs, all the objects that make up your PeopleSoft applications. So the fact that it can recognize and understands it from a tool and technology perspective, that helps you reduce your script maintenance. It helps with error handling. And then it also, as you apply updates, it helps you keep your scripts up to date and running successfully. The last point here is the great thing about PTF being built in the application is there are test maintenance reports that are delivered. So when you apply PUM maintenance or tools upgrades and your scripts are impacted with those changes, the test maintenance reports actually point out where you may have some inconsistencies or broken references or code that is no longer working as part of the scripts. Benefits of PTF. It enables you to apply PUM maintenance more frequently. So while most clients are upgrading PUMs or applying PUMs once a year, maybe twice a year, it enables you to apply them much more frequently. It standardizes testing and results across all environments. So in the past, if you were testing across multiple environments, maybe development, testing environment, in a QA or an integration environment, you can now run these scripts much more quickly and do a full integration test in every environment. So you're really executing the same exact broad test each time with each test cycle. The third bullet here is really the most important one. At a high level, it reduces all your cost and time for really any testing any production release. Again, I mentioned PUM, images, and PeopleTools updates. You can stage end-to-end data for unit testing with the tool. You can actually test any fixes or enhancements that you're doing internally, any configuration changes that you're deploying, new modules, maybe infrastructure changes that you need to do regression testing. So, virtually any change, these tests can be leveraged and used on. So when can you apply PTF in terms of your testing phases or test cycles? So we'll talk about this a little bit more in the slides coming up, but we apply PTF in unit testing, system integration. They can be used for performance testing, and I'll call it a lighter performance testing. It's not a full load test, but if you do have multiple machines with PTF installed, you can simulate users with it. You can, from a UAT perspective, the way we approach our PTF projects is we design our automated testing to mimic UAT and do all the technical testing that IT would do. So we're basically performing multiple test functions with our test libraries and scripts that we build for clients. So it really greatly reduces the time and effort that your business team needs to spend on testing. So rather than actually having to execute testing, with automated testing with PTF, your business users are simply validating the results, making sure that transactions were entered, the data looks appropriate, reports are running accurately. So really, it streamlines testing greatly for UAT. And then last but not least, regression testing. So with the full suite and library of tests that we design and build, you can use that for regression testing virtually any change. Okay, so that's it in terms of the PTF overview. I'm going to talk a little bit about Selenium. So Selenium is an open source, free test automation tool. It's really a global standard that's being used for cross-application testing, just like PTF is with PeopleSoft. Selenium can be used for virtually any application or web application. It's used across browsers and platforms. So regardless of what browser you want to test on, or operating systems, Selenium can be used in those scenarios. And then last point, so the Selenium Framework, it's a coding structure that makes it easy to read, reuse, and maintain test scripts. Similar to PTF again, but for other applications. This architecture slide really just describes how some of the technical components and how scripts are called and kicked off. So the Selenium server is in the middle. Your test scripts, which could be programmed using different languages, are on the left. Selenium can be used to call those test scripts and launches those scripts within whatever browser that you want to execute the tests on. You may want to test applications in different browsers to make sure you don't have any browser incompatibility issues. So again, you can run the same scripts multiple times in different browsers and verify you get the expected results. Benefits of Selenium, I already mentioned it's open source and free, but fairly simple to install. The scripts are modular, so that helps with recording, building out your test library, and playing them back. I mentioned it's compatible with multiple operating systems and browsers. There's no dedicated PC required for testing, unlike PTF. And it's capable of integrating with third-party testing tools as well. So that's overview of Selenium. Appium, similar to Selenium in a lot of regards, in that it's open source. It does support web application testing. One of the differences, it's really focused on mobile application testing. So you can perform those tests on physical devices, on phones or tablets, or emulated devices, or both. The APIs for Appium support both Android and Apple iOS operating systems, and it also supports all Selenium language libraries. So Selenium and Appium are actually they integrate and work together for testing mobile applications. Some of the benefits of Appium: open source, mentioned the compatibility with browsers and operating systems. The script development can be done in multiple programming languages. And then last but not least, it doesn't require any additional mobile software to be installed on your devices. This next slide compares Appium to some other common mobile testing tools. I'm not going to go through each of these, but you can see if you look down the Appium column, a lot of these functions within each row are really all supported by Appium. I've actually covered a lot of these points already, but as you can see, some of the other mobile testing tools don't support Apple, or don't support some of these different functions. Okay, the last testing tool that I wanted to cover is Jenkins. So Jenkins also is an open source tool written in Java. You can think of it, if you're familiar with PTF shell tests, which are used to call individual test scripts in PeopleSoft. Shell tests can also call other tools within PeopleSoft, like query or data mover scripts. So similar to that, Jenkins can be used to call other test automation tools, so such as Selenium and Appium. It is CI/CD. It's very well known for that. So it's a continuous integration, continuous delivery tool. Essentially means as you're developing code and you need to do testing of it, it's able to do that continuously throughout the life cycle of your development, and in multiple environments and multiple devices. It achieves that continuous integration through plugins, applications that allow it to work with virtually any testing tool or programming language. And it supports all DevOps stages. Okay, this next slide kind of gives you the integrated view of Jenkins with some of these other testing tools that I mentioned. So essentially, you may have your various master test library with different scripts, where the individual tests 1, 2, 3, 4, those could be developed in different tools. So whether that's, again, PTF, Selenium, what Jenkins can do is Jenkins can actually call those individual tests, string them together, and execute them in the tool in the right sequence that you need in order to achieve the test or the outcome that you're looking for with the development that you're testing. So really all of these pieces, once you start talking about true integrated testing across applications, you kind of need these different technologies and this stack to do the end-to-end testing. Advantages of Jenkins, similar to the others, it's an open source tool. It integrates with PTF tests and non-PeopleSoft test automation tools. It's very compatible and flexible. There's literally thousands of plugins so that it can work with different applications. It's built on Java and it's portable to all major platforms. And there's also a great development community around it for support. Okay, so that's kind of the foundational overview of the different tools and technologies. We're going to cover in the next few slides how SpearMC approaches test automation. So this slide is really focused on PeopleSoft, but it could actually include non-PeopleSoft testing as well. At the top, really what we do when we start out projects is validate and update your test plans. So what's your scope of testing? What does your library need to cover in terms of application functionality and maybe multiple applications, not just PeopleSoft, now that we're talking about extending it and doing integrated testing. Second, prep your environments and clients. So, for all your applications, but especially PeopleSoft, there is some environment setup required within PeopleSoft, and With PTF, if you will have to use a client to develop your test library, so you're going to have to install the PTF software. Number 3, so validating and updating test scripts. This is where SpearMC can help you. We actually have libraries that we've built based on the demo databases. So across all the suites, HCM, financials, ELM, campus solutions, we typically start with our test libraries, which consists of individual scripts and shell tests, which are your end-to-end tests. So, if we're talking about, hiring an employee and onboarding, we have the individual scripts and the shells that walk through all the tests in order to, hire and onboard an employee. Even assign benefits, we can take it all the way through time entry and payroll, if those modules are all in scope. Similarly, on the finance side, if we're talking about procure to pay or record to report, it may entail entering a requisition, building a purchase order, doing receiving, entering vouchers in AP, sending accounting entries to GL. We've got the end-to-end shell test with variables built in that will handle all of those scenarios. So what we do typically is start with those generic library demo tests, and then we work with our clients to identify the configuration data and anything that's unique about their business process, and we update the scripts accordingly so that they'll run, in our client's environment with their configuration mimicking their business process. So once the library is built, we validate all the test assets, so the scripts, the shells, and the whole library. We'll correct and troubleshoot any defects or issues, and then once we finish a test cycle, typically we're either developing it to apply it to an upgrade or some other event. But we'll typically develop it in a dev environment, and then as changes are migrated, or if you're doing an upgrade or pump maintenance, as you apply those changes to different environments, we migrate those scripts and we execute them in each environment where the testing needs to occur. And really, this cycle is it's ongoing, as you maintain the application. Okay, this next slide really talks to the building blocks and the components in terms of how we get to full test automation. So I'm not going to go through each of these in too much detail, just for time purposes, but at the very bottom, we have individual tests and test cases. So if we talk about creating a purchase order, that may be every transaction represents an individual test. You may have different ways of doing a transaction, which is what test cases will allow you to do. So you may have individual tests, but multiple test cases for how you execute it. Shell tests, I've already explained. That's how you build your end-to-end testing and string together those individual tests. And then last but not least, at the very top of the pyramid is another type of shell test. We call them execution shells. But basically, we use a shell test to actually execute all of your end-to-end tests, or maybe even individual scripts if you're doing unit testing. So we use all of these different object types for different purposes to get to a full library that you can basically kick off and run for your different test cycles. Okay, this next slide, I've already covered a lot about shell tests. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but Tarun is actually going to give you a demo of a shell test and how you can actually execute individual scripts. This slide really talks to some of the different services that we offer around PTF and automated testing. We can do your initial library build, kind of what I've already explained, starting with our script library, which is basically an accelerator. So we can, it saves us time in having to develop scripts from scratch, which can be very time consuming. We also use the delivered system processes, which most clients are following in order to build your end-to-end. And then we also offer a managed service around testing, which we call testing as a service, or TAS. What TAS is so not only can we develop your library for you, but we can maintain it and execute it over time. So as you do tools upgrades, apply PUM maintenance, if you're applying quarterly tax updates in HCM, we can actually maintain and run those tests for you on an ongoing basis. Part of this service will also provide training for you on how the library was built. So if you want to be able to run the scripts on your own for changes that you have in between those bigger get current or maintenance events, your team can actually run the tests or subsets of the library for validating some of the changes that you might be deploying. And then lastly, if you do want to actually maintain the library on your own, we have full training around the tool and development, and which includes kind of our best practices and the bolt-ons, which Tarun is going to demo for you shortly. Here's a few example PTF and testing as a service clients that we have. We've applied these tools in multiple industries. Obviously, all PeopleSoft clients, but very proud of the PTF and testing as a service clients that we have. Okay, so on to the the fun part, getting into the software. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tarun. He's going to show you examples of running individual scripts and shells, and then give you an overview of some of those bolt-on solutions that PRMC has built around PTF. And then I'm going to come back and I'll run those video demonstrations for you on Selenium and Appium. All right, Tarun, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Tom. Whenever you stop screen sharing, I will start screen sharing. Before I get started, quick shout out to some folks that I see are in attendance from North Dakota. If I have not responded to your emails yet, it's because I was prepping for this session right now. So for today's demo, it's going to be really split into two sections. First, I'm just going to real quick do a demo of PTF and the tool itself. And then I'll talk about how we at Spear have built our own tool to sort of extend PTF's reporting capabilities and some other cool stuff you can do in it. So I'm going to click the share button. All right, there we go. So if you've seen PTF before, you might be familiar with this tool and the way that it looks. Basically, what you're seeing here is you have a bunch of rows, and this is a test. So every test has a bunch of rows. Each row is one step in the test. Pretty straightforward. If you're going to go up a little bit, you might want to know how to organize your tests. You just kind of put them all in a library like this. And for today, we'll be talking about these 4 tests. So the actual content of the tests for this demo doesn't matter too much, but this is all within the HR application. So let's try running this test to create a pay sheet. There's a big green button up here to run. So now that we're on the PTF tool, we pulled up our test. I'm going to click run, and PTF is going to take it from there. So I've set up things like who do I want to log in as, what kind of browser do I want to use, do I want the browser to appear in front of me or in the background, along with all the test steps and test data needed to execute this test. So for this one, it's pulled up this run control page. It's going to create a run control to create a pay sheet. And it's going to try to schedule a process. And the nice thing about PTF is that it does a really good job of understanding PeopleSoft processes and run control pages and things like that. It has a lot of built-in tools to handle run control pages and processes and queries, all these very PeopleSoft objects. So you can see it's run, and now it's doing that thing that you always do when you run a process, which is it's sitting there and hitting refresh every couple of seconds. Spoiler alert, I don't think we built COBOLs in this environment, so it's going to run to an error. And this is why you never do a live demo. But more seriously, I meant for that to happen. So it's going to pull up a log now. And taking a look at the log, you can see that it gives us a big red flag here. And this log is very helpful. Oh, now this is why you actually don't do a live demo. Continue. Yeah, we're good. Anyways, so these logs help you figure out what went wrong. You can see here it's kind of hard to read at first if you haven't looked at PTF a lot. But basically, you can kind of get the idea that it's got to running the process, and it gave you a red flag because the final status was not success, which was the expected status. And it even took a little screenshot for you to keep, just in case this might help you troubleshoot what's going on. And it even tells you here, okay, great. So its process request is timed out with this certain distribution status. And that's all good and fine. But what if we want to, see a test that actually runs successfully? What I've got here is an example of a shell script. What I ran originally was an individual test. This is a shell script, which takes 3 individual tests, and those are in bold here. This one's to change a job code, this one's to change a supervisor for somebody, and this one's for an employee. And it's going to run these 3 tests. What's special about the shell test is that it'll take all of these variables that I've set up for an employee ID, job code, supervisor ID, and pay group, and it's going to load that into these tests as we run them. So that lets you, let's say you were setting something up in one test that you wanted to carry over to the next test, you could build a shell test to do that. So if I kick this off, hit play, and it's going to do the same sort of thing. Logs in, hands are off the keyboard. Just kind of sit here and watch it run for a little bit. And while it's running, let's see, I'm going to talk about a little bit of what our tool does. So you can see that we have logs in the PTF tool itself. Tom talked about a little bit, but the PTF tool is very similar to Application Designer in that you need to install it onto some sort of a workstation to access it. There's special PTF security and things like that that are set up just so you can access the tool, run tests, edit tests, or be an admin for tests. And that all works within the standard PeopleSoft security framework. But what our tool hopes to our testing grounds bolt on, which is what it is. It's really a bolt on for your PeopleSoft application. You just import a project and boom, you got it. And it includes things like a dashboard online so that you can actually see stuff without having to open up the tool. So if you are on a computer that doesn't have PTF installed, because if you're not running tests, you don't need to have PTF installed. Not when PTF stores all of its data inside of the PeopleSoft records already. So we've built a dashboard so that you can get right up in there, drill down to the error messages that you're getting, pull up logs, update test data, and I'll show you that right after this test finishes, which it should in just a few seconds. This is also a good time for if you guys have any questions or anything, please drop them in the chat. I don't know how exactly the questions feature works on Excel events, but I'm sure you guys are smart and you'll figure it out. But looks like the script ran successfully. Unlike our last test, we got a little green flag here, which is nice. We see it's passed. Quite a long log, but what's nice is we can really see that there are 3 tests that were run and all 3 ran to a green flag and they've passed. That's great. But this is all still delivered. So let's start moving into the non-delivered stuff. So we tried to create a pay sheet that failed. We tried to update an employee that passed. I'm just going to pull up the Spear dashboard, and I thought it would be fun to just make a PTF test that did that for me real quick. So it's just going to log in. It'll pull up the dashboard. Boom. It's going to insert the parent folder that we're looking under. So I showed you just a little while ago that we organized the PTF tests under sort of a file structure, and that's how the dashboard works too. So it's pulled up. Yeah.
So I just noticed in the chat, some folks are having a hard time seeing your screen. I'm the same way. Is there any way to zoom your screen then?
Absolutely.
It's actually hard to read anything. Much better. Thank you.
All right. I will continue with this Zoom, and the rest of the app, like my demo, is going to be in the application, like in PIA. So thank you for the heads up. So here's an example of what one of the logs looks like. So this is the dashboard where we've pulled up one of the folders, and this one I made one just called Reconnect. We can see there are 4 tests here, and these are the 2 that we just ran. So one of them passed, one of them failed. Real quick and easy to tell if passed or failed there. Let's look at this one that failed. We want to figure out why it failed. I'll just pull up the log here. So pulling up the detailed log, this is exactly what we saw in the tool, including the screenshot. So we can even see the screenshot of where it failed. What is nice about this is that you do not need to have the PTF tool installed to actually access this stuff. So you can kind of get live, you can get a live look at how testing is going without needing to open up the tool itself. So there's 2 options under here. I could go to detailed log. I can also update the test data. So let's say I knew that the issue was because that this run control was wrong, and it's actually something like maybe the run control was just incorrect, and I already knew that, so I'll just hit save. Or maybe the run ID needed to be updated, wrong year, so maybe we need to bring it up to 20. I could just update it here and then click save. There's also another option on this page to print a manual script, and that comes into play when we try to do our original PTF build. What we did is we kind of built all of our scripts in demo, and we click print manual script, and that gives us something like this, which I'm also going to see. People on the call are very familiar with this, having basically updated this to sort of meet their business's needs. So this test, for example, we hopped on over to financials. This one is to create a voucher in the accounts payable module. So basically, these are all the steps from PTF, but you can see that we've clearly defined what the test data is on the right column, and all of this is built to work in demo right now. So you can click that button. You've generated this. Now you can update this, hand it over to a developer, and then the developer can take that and make whatever changes they need to make to the script. And it lets us kind of work sort of asynchronously, and it gets stuff done much faster. So we've talked about the dashboard. We've gotten to drill down to the error message on a specific test. We've updated test data for a test. We've looked at manual sort of the manual scripts that you can generate from tests. There's one more thing, and I think it's one of the real important sort of pieces of the testing grounds that's missing in delivered people to our PTF, which is the test evidence report. I'm going to pull this up real quick. So there's only a couple of required fields for this. You know, this is when did you start your test cycle? When did you end your test cycle? So I want to pull up the tests that I was working on today. I'm going to pick a test suite, and this will pull up all of the folders in my sort of database. I'm going to select Reconnect. So I want to pull up all the tests that were in Reconnect. I'm going to hit search. And what this does is it will bring us all those logs again. What's handy about this is that not only can you view your logs in PIA, but you can generate a report from this, a PDF report that you can save off. And let's say, you know, you needed it for some sort of auditing. You need to make sure that there is a certain level of testing that you're providing to people for sign off. This is a really easy way to, you know, generate some PDF reports that have all the logs, including screenshots, for, you know, review later. So you can generate them, you know, for a whole folder. You can pick a specific test that you wanted to generate it for. So what did we do? Which one passed? The update employee one passed. We can see that, you know, it's passed. I can even filter by pass or fail, and generate one of these 3 reports. Each one has slightly different information in it based on how much info you want in your report. I like the detailed report myself personally because it combines everything in the log along with screenshots. And if you can figure out how to kind of read it, which isn't as hard as it looks, really. It becomes a really invaluable resource for troubleshooting what's wrong with your tests or what's wrong with your application and identifying defects. And I think that's where I can sort of wrap up my PTF demo. And Tom, we can switch over to showing off the sort of third-party testing tools.
Okay, thanks, Tarun. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing. There we go. Okay, Tarun, can you see my screen? I want to make sure you should see a video player.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So for this first video demo, we're going to demonstrate a Selenium test script, actually booking a taxi on a website, booking.com, and basically completing that transaction. Again, you know, we could be using any web application. This was just a simple example just to demonstrate the functionality of the tool. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play. You're looking at the administration tool right now where you kick off the scripts. So you'll see it first start off with logging into the site and you know, going to the browser to run through it. So here it's initializing, opening Chrome to booking.com, logging in to the website. Going to look for a taxi from Miami International to the hotel. Not a lot of people are doing this these days, but hopefully that changes here shortly. Okay, so that was it. Very short demo. You know, essentially, I'm going to scroll through to the last part of it one more time. I can pause it. So searching, it is a pretty fast demo. Selecting a car, standard size, it gets to basically the part where you enter in personal details in your credit card information, and that's where we stopped the demo. So that's about it, but that's essentially how the tool looks like when it's executing. You'll notice a lot of the steps are happening behind the scenes, so that's allows it to run quicker. I'm going to go ahead and run the next video script that we have. Hold on one second. So this is using Appium, and this is going to be booking a hotel. I actually slow it down this time. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. You'll notice the mobile phone screen to the right. Again, we're in the admin tool as well, but you'll see some code running, but just focus on the iPhone to the right, and that's where you'll see the mobile testing that's occurring. Again, this is Appium, and it's largely used for testing mobile applications, either on an emulated device, or it could be on a physical device as well. So I'm going to hit play. And you can see it's running through some of the code to initialize the script. Again, I slowed this one down. Maybe I wanted to slow that first one down instead, but let's see. Okay, here we go. So we've got the website up, doing a search. So the first step is entering the destination where we're looking to make a reservation. So looking for the Quality Inn at the Miami airport. Now we're putting in the start and end date of our stay that we're looking for. And we're going to do a search and see what's available. Okay, so there's our search results. So we've got the Quality Inn at the Miami airport in our results is the first selection, and we'll go ahead and select it. Then we have to select which type of room we need. And then reserve. Yeah, unfortunately, this is a little too slow, but we're almost there. Okay, and then we get to the point where we enter in personal details. And that's pretty much the end of the script. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it. So just to kind of recap, again, with these tools, it really allows you to do your testing across integrated scenarios. So, there's lots of different applications for it. Within HR, you may have a different talent management tool, where you're like if you're not using eRecruit in HR, you may be using a third-party tool. So if you want to actually do end-to-end onboarding, including all those steps where, within an applicant tracking system, or maybe even, benefits providers, you may have, third-party tools that you're using there. You can actually do end-to-end scenarios, using these other applications. Within financials, we've actually used Selenium to automate testing of punch-outs within ePro. So for those of you familiar with e-procurement, there's a functionality that allows you to punch out to a vendor's website where they're hosting catalogs. You can build a shopping cart, bring the shopping cart back into PeopleSoft as a requisition. So there's actually interactions in and outside of PeopleSoft using a website within the PF frame. You actually can't do those tests unless you're using a tool like Selenium. PTF actually gets cut off during those transactions because it loses focus once you go to the website. So the gist of it is, we can actually now do complete end-to-end testing for those scenarios that require it. So I know some of our existing testing as a service clients, so that's really the next step that they're looking for. They're really getting a lot of value out of just the PeopleSoft testing, so now they're looking to extend it to other applications and mobile as well. So yeah, that concludes our demo. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Maybe we look at the chat and see if there's any questions or Q&A that we can talk through. Tarun, I don't know if you're in the chat at all. If there's anything there that you see, I'm not there quite yet.
So nothing yet. Please feel free to drop something in the chat if you guys have anything you want to talk about. I also put in a quick note. I know that the first part of my demo was pretty blurry. So if you have any questions about that part, and you don't feel comfortable bringing it up right now, send me an email. I'm happy to run through that part of the demo again for you, or answer any questions about the PTF tool.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go back to sharing my screen. Let me go to the very last slide. So yeah, if there's any questions, we'd be more than happy to do live demos for you. We could, personalize the content, whatever you're interested in. If you want to actually see some examples of our library and financials, HCM, ELM, whatever pillar you're looking for, we'd be more than happy to do that. Here's my contact information. So yeah. Any questions coming through, Tarun?
We got one question from Subhash. For PTF, do we need to update PTF scripts too in case of PUM upgrades wherever applicable? And the answer is maybe. It kind of depends on what's changed in the PUM upgrade. And to help with that, there are certain reports that you can run in the application that come with PTF that just help you check to see if any of your tests have broken. So you don't necessarily have to run all your tests and see what broke. Hopefully, you can just run this compare report is basically what it is you run a compare report, see if anything has changed that would affect any of your tests. And if it has, then you can take a look at that test again, because you're going to kind of expect it to break at that point. And that'll help you kind of maintain your tests moving forward as you, do more PUM updates, upgrades, whatever it might be.
Yeah, good question. Anything else come through?
That's all I've got so far.
Okay, well, we've got 5 minutes left. If there's not any other questions, we will let you go. Have a great afternoon, great conference. Thanks so much for joining us. Yeah, feel free to reach out. Here's my phone number, email. You know, whenever you would like to see some follow-up, be more than happy to talk to you. Thanks again. Have a great afternoon.